Good afternoon to all.
Good afternoon.
Welcome you all back. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to all. Welcome you all back for the afternoon session, which is going to be a useful one. I take this opportunity to introduce our guest of honor for this afternoon session, Dr. Panchacharam Mariappan. Dr. Panchacharam is an assistant professor in the Department of Mathematics and Statistics, Indian Institute of Technology, Tirupati. Prior to joining IIT Tirupati in 2018, he was a CFD software engineer in Uma Engineering Services Limited, Dundalk, Ireland in 2014, and he was working on bioinformatics and space industry problems. Research activities of Dr. Chandracharam were on developing cancer treatment software and web-based tools to predict the outcome of minimally invasive cancer treatments such as RFA and MWA in real time for his significant contributions to this field. He received a praise award for best poster presentation in Ireland. Dr. Panchacharam has received his PhD degree in mathematics from the Department of Mathematics, Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. His PhD was a sandwich PhD, where part of his research was carried at Germany under the fellowship of DAAD, Germany. Subsequently carried out his postdoctoral research at ITWM, Germany. He has developed a product called Clinis Impact under the project titled Clinis Impact with the help of various other technologies universities of Europe. The main aim of this product is to predict cancer treatment outcomes in seconds. This product predicts 1 hour cancer treatment outcomes in less than 2 minutes. It has also contributed to development of a web-based tool called GoSmart, which focus on different clinical workflow for various cancer. In addition, he also contributed to some of the NASA and ESA research work. Dr. Panchacharam and his team of students have developed more than a software tool in the last 2 months together with SVIMS Hospital Tirupati to help the doctors to note down the COVID patient information and their vitals. The app name is COVID EMR and is currently used by more than 25 doctors in SVIMS Hospital. He is also an editorial board member of Transient, Journal of King's University, Applied Mathematics and Computation, International Journal for Numerical Methods in Biomedical Engineering, and Journal of Nepal Mathematical Society. He is also a thesis examiner for a PhD thesis from SRM Institute of Science and Technology thesis and Viva examiner for the same thesis. He is also a thesis examiner for a PhD thesis from Koneru Laxmaya Education Foundation. He is also a core committee member of Technology Innovation Hub, Precision and Positioning Technology, IIT Tirupati, and he is a Senate member of IIT Tirupati. And he has published more than 15 papers in international journals. And he has published more papers in conferences also. So, I welcome Dr. Panchacharam.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for giving the opportunity. So, without further delay, let me just begin. So, this session will be a little bit interactive. Okay, so I hope you will have some interaction with me. So, let me begin. Hope my slides are visible. Yeah, hope my slides are visible. So we will begin with, so I just start with the empty slide. So I also expect you to come with some, without anything basic. Okay, we'll try to fill up with something in your mind. Let us see that. So I'll just, whenever I give a talk, so I usually have the habit of giving some games or some kind of quiz, etc. or some kind of story I used to tell. So this talk, let me begin with some simple game. So the game is as follows. So what you got to do is that you got to draw a house on a paper. That's all. Okay, you have to draw a house on a paper. Let me just give some 2 minutes time. You just draw it, and then I will show some picture. Then you can say like how many of you have drawn. So you can just put it in the chat box. Yes, if you have drawn a similar kind of house. So your time starts now. You can draw a house in a piece of paper. And if anyone has drawn, probably you can switch on your camera and then show also. Okay, anybody, any willingness to show the house which you draw on paper? Okay, this time, so I'll just show the house on the slide. Okay, so how many of you have drawn a house like this? How many of you have drawn a house like this? You can just say yes or no in the chat box. Okay, yeah, some Saranya has drawn similar kind of thing. So how many of you have drawn? You can put it in the chat box, yes or no. First 20-25 minutes, it will be kind of interaction only. So I'll not explain you anything. I'll just have some game and then we'll go ahead. Yeah, yes. Anyone else? Yes, yes. Okay, so I'll just continue. So 90% of the people. So this one, it is not the first time I'm giving this game. I have given this game to various universities across India and as well as in abroad also. So 90% of the people have drawn a house like this. Okay, 90% of the people have drawn a house like this. Some people have drawn little different, but 90% they have drawn like this. The question followed by this one is as follows: how many of your houses are like this? Okay, so almost like only 5% of the people, whenever I had an audience of like hundreds or 200, only 5% of the people, they used to raise the hands that their houses are like this. The rest of the people, they have, either it is India or abroad, even if it is a civil engineer or mechanical engineer, whoever it is, they have drawn a house like this. The question is why? Okay, the question is why. Your house is not like that, but still you are trying to try a house like this. Question is why. Let us try to answer that. Okay, there are some reasons people have said that. So they have fixed up in their mind from the childhood that if it asked to try a house, then their house is like a two pieces, one piece of rectangle and another piece of triangle. That's it. Okay, and some simple steps. But our house is not like that. So from childhood they have taken that. So we'll come to this little later. I will just so 10% of the 5 to 10% of the people raise their hands usually. So now let us go to the another round called rapid fire round quiz. Okay, I will just show some kind of images or some kind of expression. What you have to say is that what does it represent? You have to say it. So let us start. So what does this equation or what does this represent? You can put it in the chat box, or if you want to unmute also, you can unmute anytime.
Okay.
Sorry. Hello.
This is area is equal to length into breadth, sir.
Okay. So most people have said the same thing. Area is equal to length into breadth. Okay. So almost 100% of the people they have said that. What about this one? Any idea?
Weight equal to mass into gravity.
Yes. So weight equal to mass into gravity, mass times gravity. 90% of the people said.
Force equal to mass into acceleration.
Yeah. So force into mass, force equal to mass into acceleration. So Newton second law. So this is maybe outside. What does it represent?
Represents a straight line passing through the origin.
Yes, equation of straight line. Okay, passing through the origin. What about this one? Okay, so almost complete silence. Okay, so in the all the audience also almost similar. So this is called hyperbolic paraboloid. Okay? This is called hyperbolic paraboloid. Okay, what is this? What does it represent?
Area of a circle.
Okay,
Einstein's law.
okay,
Parabola.
okay. Again, I know like complete silence used to be there. Okay, so this is some three-dimensional equation. It has no name, but still I have given something. Okay, a figure only I have given. What about this one? Maybe I will give some hint.
Pythagoras theorem.
Okay,
Circle equation.
okay. So this is actually some 3D equation some people said. So this is the equation of cone. Okay, conic is conic. Okay, what about this equation? Okay, so almost pin drop silence used to be there. At least earlier some used to be there. Some pin drop silence usually was there. So this is the equation of the heart. Okay, so why I have shown this picture? Let me show you. See, you have an equation y equal to mx, a equal to lp, f equal to ma, w equal to mg, z equal to x. Isn't it same kind of things? See, everywhere I have left hand side one thing, right hand side two numbers are there, or two letters are there, which I'm just multiplying. Okay, so y equal to mx, a equal to lb, f equal to ma, w equal to mg, z equal to xy. So everywhere almost similar kind of thing, but at one place at y equal to mx, we say that m is nothing but the slope, and f equal to ma and w equal to mg, we say that it is a mass. Okay, but almost similar things, right? Y equal to mx or a equal to lb or f equal to ma, w equal to mg or z equal to xy, almost similar kind of thing. So right, left hand side something and right hand side something is there, but almost categories similar kind of things. If I say the same thing to school children, he will not understand that it is a straight line equation or Newton's second law or area of the rectangle, etc. He will simply say some school children, he will say that like let's say like school kid, if I say who knows like one first standard or second standard, he will simply say that xm, and he may not know like that symbol which is here is equal sign. He will simply say that something is that, but he cannot say what is that. So that much only he can say. So from then onwards, we start to giving a name for this kind of things. Okay, so how do we evolve in that situation? Okay, how do we evolve in that? Like y equal to mx is going to represent the equation. So you got some training. Okay, y equal to mx because you got some training to that school or colleges saying that this is equation, straight line equation. So z equal to xy probably you may not come across in your mind and you are not able to say that. Okay, same thing for here. Y equal to x square, a equal to pi r square, e equal to mc square, z equal to xy square. Almost similar kind of expression. Okay, so left hand side some symbol is there, right hand side some symbols are there. So again, if I say like the school children cannot understand it is square, you'll say it is 2. Okay, so some symbols are there. Almost similar kind of setup, but still we say that one is parabola, another is area of the rectangle, another. Also, if you see the domain of the problem, also it will be different. Like a equal to lb, I cannot say like it is going to be infinite thing. I will just say like finite quantity. I'm going to do that. But y equal to mx, you can see that range is the domain is going to be completely different. Minus infinity to infinity, it is going to be the it's going to pass through the origin, etc. I used to infer something. So some of the things we are trying to infer it. Okay, so same thing for this one. One is going to represent one you are saying this is Pythagoras theorem, another you are saying circle, another you are saying conic equation. Almost similar kind of the setup, but we still used to say that. So as a mathematician, for me, okay, it is a statement from Henry Poincaré. So he says that mathematics is the art of giving the same name to different things. Okay, same name. So as a mathematician, for me, all these things I can just simply say that f of x comma y comma z equal to 0. Okay, where x and y and z are either it can be variable or it can be constant or it can be numbers also. So f of x comma y comma z equal to 0. Simply I can say this one. As a mathematician, whatever the equations I have shown, simply I'll say it is f of x comma y comma z equal to 0, and then I will try to study what is the properties are there, etc. etc. So with this property, with this simple introduction, I'll just go ahead with mathematical modeling for business analytics. Okay, so what are we going to do? So let us see what is modeling first. Okay, so let us see, again we'll go to the simple problem. So this reference for this talk is taken from these two books. One is called Mathematical Modeling and Simulation, which is an introduction for scientists and engineers. So first 20 minutes or 30 minutes, I will just cover it. Next 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I will cover it using this mathematical modeling and simulation in the scientific and engineering perspective. Then I will cover the next thing from William Fox. Okay, so his approach of mathematical modeling for business analytics. So I have seen that in the morning, he has given little introduction about the modeling, and then rest of the time, he has concentrated on the problem solving, like finance related mathematics. So I will concentrate more on modeling and I will concentrate less on the business aspect, but of course we'll solve it. I will show some of the complicated problems also. So let us take a simple thing. Suppose there is a table which is sitting on an uneven floor or unstable. Or three situations I will give. Okay, you can just tell me like what you will do. Then I will tell you like how to develop the model. Okay, so situation number one is that one. Second situation is that suppose you are going in a Coimbatore highway, Coimbatore to Palakkad highway or Coimbatore to Madurai highway somewhere. You are having a car or bike. Okay, you are going in a highway. Suddenly it is not starting. Okay, this is situation number two. Situation number three is you have a headache. Okay, so in these three situations, how will you react? You can tell me. So suppose you are going in a bike, okay, and on a highway you are going. Your car or bike is suddenly stopped and it's not starting. What will you do? First. Any answers? Hello? Any answers? Yeah, you can answer that so that I will proceed further. So suppose car or bike is not starting. Either you can put it in the chat box or you can unmute and then tell us. What will you check first when the car or bike is not starting?
Fuel, sir. Fuel.
Okay, okay. Suppose you got headache, then what will you do?
Then we'll go for engine.
No, okay, that you will go for the car or bike problem. Okay, so car, then you'll go for engine, etc. Okay, good. Headache. Suppose you got some headache suddenly.
Because of stress.
Okay, so what will you do immediately?
Maybe some problem in our health.
Okay. So you will put some tablet.
Headache is the intimation for our health issues.
Okay, okay, fine. So some people have mentioned doctor consultation. So the thing is that, so as some people have said, like Saranya said, so car or bike is not starting. The first thing what he said is that she said fuel is there or not. Okay. So usually when headache is there, people used to put either the Saridan or Anacin or paracetamol, whatever the tablet which they have, immediately they'll put, or they will put some pain form. So the problem is that, so similarly that when the table is unstable, we'll just put some piece of food and then we'll do that. So all these things we are doing. So almost we are doing the modeling our own way of interpretation. But the thing is that the car is so complex. Okay, it is not only the fuel tank; it is having so many complicated parts are there. But we still think that it is very simple to solve, and then we will check whether the fuel is there or not. So for my so this question again I asked a few people. So they said they will check whether the fuel is there or they will check whether the battery is there or not. Okay, so these two things take outside. But the car is so complex, but still they will check only those things. Similarly, like if our body is so complex, so if you go to some of the website called WebM, etc., and then if you simply put headache, then it will just start from simple migraine to cancer. Also, it will list out all these things. So that means our body is so complex, but still what we think is that we can just put some paracetamol or anacin or something, and then it will solve the purpose. Almost modeling is going to do the same thing. So we are going to do the mathematical modeling also in the similar way. What we are going to do is that either the scientists or engineers or economists or business people, almost they are going to do the same thing. Okay, so they just break up the complexity of the system into a simplified description of that system. Means almost the car is complex. I am going to think that I am just sitting on the fuel tank. Okay, for me it is just a fuel tank. I'm just sitting on the fuel tank that is going to drive. Like that I'm just thinking. That's the reason I'm just checking first whether the fuel is there or not. Okay, we'll describe that little later, like how to make it complexity, etc. So that is the same way scientists and engineers are going to do. Suppose you have some real world problem, they will just break it into a small piece of problem where they will just assume that many of the things and then they will forget many of the complexity factors and then they will just simplify that and then they used to. So what is a model? Okay, so for a model is nothing but to an observer B, an object A star is a model of an object A to the extent that B can use A star to answer that question that interests him about you. So for example, the car problem will take, okay, I am the observer. For me, the car is not starting. That is the question I have. Okay, why the car is not starting, that I am having. So that means I have to model that. Okay, that is nothing but my real object is A, for which I'm just going to draw something which is going to be simply the A star, which is nothing but the fuel tank. Fuel tank is nothing but my car. Okay, that is nothing but. Same way, I have asked a question to you to put something called draw a house on a paper. Then what you draw is that you just draw a house, you draw a rectangle and a triangle, and that is accepted as a house up to some extent. Okay, so if you just go to any of the website, also go to any of the website, 99% of the website, what they will do is that if you see the home button, they will put this rectangle and the triangle only. Okay, that is nothing but the home button they used to put. So same thing, it is accepted as a model up to some extent. Okay, if I just put some more question that cannot be answered. So the question I asked to draw a house on a paper, but what purpose, what is the things, etc. I did not ask. So if I asked to draw a house on a paper, then you have drawn that. That is nothing but the model. Okay, it is a model for you, model which you have given. So I asked a house that you have given some model. That is nothing but the A star for you. Okay. So for example, let us take the car problem. So for me, that for the driver, the real object is nothing but the car, okay, which is an object. A star is nothing but the fuel tank or battery. Okay, that is nothing but so you people have Saranya has said that fuel tank. So for her, only the fuel tank is going to be the battery. Or she said some engines, so maybe she can add some engines later stage. So for me, I am just assuming battery and fuel is the only thing. Okay, so that means for me, my car is nothing but a fuel tank and battery. I don't care about what else is there. It may be there, it may not be there. I am not going to care about the remaining things. Okay, and I have ordered some of the tires also here as a simple thing. Okay, like a simple thing about it. I'll just explain that the tires and a little later. So this is nothing but a simple problem which I have. Okay, this is nothing but the model for the real object which I have. But can we observe anything from that we are trying to see? So we'll develop a little bit, and then we'll see like how to do a similar kind of things for the business analytics also. So the best model is the simplest model. Okay, that should still serve its purpose. Okay, I have a model that can be a best model. The best model should be the simplest model that still serves its purpose. The purpose is that I asked a question for which I need an answer. Okay, which can be still complex enough to help us to understand. Okay, what is the complexity of the system? What is the system that I have to understand? And also I understand the problem. I have to solve the problem. Okay, so I have a problem that I have to ask the question. For that, I am just developing a model that could be a simplest model or the best model, and that has to be answered. So either you take a simple cause, or you take your simple problem in your personal life, or you take sending the rockets to the moon or Mars. Almost same kind of things are followed almost everywhere. Okay, so that is the thing which is there. So there is a nature for that. What is that? That is the aim and purpose. So what is the aim of the problem? What is the nature of the problem? What is the purpose of the problem? So that main purpose of modeling and simulation is that it should be governed by its purpose of the problem solving. Either it is your real life problem where you are trying to solve the problem, whether you are trying to solve the personal problem or your real life problem or everyday life problem. Almost every time you are trying to do some problem solving only. Okay, the problem solving, there is a purpose. Accordingly, you are going to do the model development. Let us see that little detail. So what we are going to have is that you are going to have a modeling and simulation. Okay, so what is going to do? So you have a problem. First, you got to define the problem. What is the problem to be defined? Okay, this I will repeat again and again. Even the business analytics model also, I'll repeat the same thing. Almost similar kind of setup is going to. So the problem definition to be solved. Okay, so the problem, first you got to define what is the problem we are going to define. Or what you got to decide, what is the question you are going to answer, that you got to define. Okay, what is the question to be answered, that you got to see it. So that means what you got to develop is that you got to define what is the system definition for which the answer is required, that you got to develop. Okay, what is the system definition for which the answer is required. Then what you got to do is that you got to do the system analysis. So I asked the question, the car is not starting or the headache is there. That means you should analyze, you have answered something, that means you have already analyzed the thing, or you have already know that that is the thing. The fuel you are going to check, that means you understand that the car is running in terms of fuel. That means you already identified or analyzed the system that the car is already having a something called fuel is there. That is going to be drive the car. Okay, that is one of the important key factor required for the car to run, that you understand. So that means identification of the part is done. Similarly, if I have a headache, then I have understood that there is some problem in my health or stress or anything that I have answered, so that you have identified that. So that is the identification of the parts of the system related to the question or problem that you have identified. Okay. Now, based on the identification of the, based on the problem definition and based on the system identification, system definition, etc., you have to develop the model. Okay, develop the model of the system based on the results of the system analysis step. So you have to analyze the step and then you have to develop the model. That is going to. So what you are going to do is that you are going to develop a system. As I have developed some system called battery and fuel tank. That is nothing but the system. So the system is an object or a collection of objects. It can be a single object or it can be a collection of objects whose properties you want to study. So that is nothing but the system. Okay, a system is nothing but an object or a collection of objects whose properties you want to study. For example, you can take the country as a country itself having lot of problem. That means that itself you can take it as a system, and then for that system, what are the parameters you are going to collect it, what are the properties you want to study, everything. Okay. For example, you can take some business problem. So that business problem means you can take the company as a business, okay, or you can take some management as a business system, and then for that system you got to identify what are the properties, like whether you want manufacturing or you want to sell it or you want to market it. All these things you can discuss them. So that is nothing but the objects you are identifying, and then you are going to put it over. The next step what you are going to do is that you are going to simulate that. Okay, this is nothing but the application of the model to the problem or question. So you develop some model. For example, you identify some fuel tank, etc. Now, similarly, in management, you have identified some problem. Now, what you got to do is that you are going to solve this problem. Okay, this is the simulation is going to kind of a solving problem. So that you try to create a toy model. The toy model means in the paper. Okay, the paper you got drawn the car on the paper, so that you got done. Okay, that you got done. Then what you are trying to answer is that you are going to try to derive a strategy to solve the problem. Okay, so for example, there is a piece of paper and that you got drawn a house. Now I will ask the question. Okay, for that question, from that toy model which you have developed already, okay, that whether we can answer the question to that toy problem, not the original problem, to the toy problem, whether you can add it. Okay, for example, if I am a civil engineer, I will ask where is the ventilation. Okay, where is the ventilation is there. Okay, if I am an electrical engineer, probably I will ask where is the electricity is there for that house. If I am a person who is doing something on people on the administrative side of the BAO or Tahsildar, etc. So in that case, he will be asking some question, where is the payment for the roads, etc. So all these questions the people will ask, then accordingly we'll put etc., etc., and then we will try to answer them. So that means what is the question is that, then we will add that models, etc., and then we will try to see what is the things which we can answer. Okay, that is nothing but the answer the question we are trying to. This is, all these things are going to be sitting in the paper only. Okay, nothing is going to be in reality. Everything is going to sit in the paper because I asked the question and then it's going to be there. Then validation, what you got to do is that you are trying to answer the question. Okay, the car is not starting is the problem which I got here. Then what you are trying to do is that you are just asking the question whether the fuel is there or not. So that means I have drawn a piece of paper and then I am just checking. That is in your conceptual mind or it is in the piece of mind. Okay, that question is there in your mind, that the either the fuel is there or not. That means what is the assumption, what is the intention, or what is the your brain is saying is that there is a fuel is not there or the battery is not there. Then what you are going to do is that you have to check whether the fuel is there or not and the battery is full or not. Okay, then you go to that nearby petrol bulk and then you just buy the petrol, or just go to push the vehicle and then you are just trying to fill that tank and then you are trying to start it again. Then that step you derived already. So that derivation, strategy derivation, already you did it in your mind. That means you understand that, okay, I got to go to that petrol bulk and then fill it and then you got to check it, etc. You have identified. Now this simulation stuff, that what you got to do is that, okay, you got to go to the petrol bulk and then you got to solve that and then you got to fill it and then you got to start it, whether it is starting or not, that you got to derive the strategy. Now you apply it to the real problem. That means what you got to do. So these are all there in your mind. But if you are sitting in the house, okay, or sitting in near that bike, nothing is going to work out. That means either you got to pull your vehicle or push your vehicle, etc., and then you got to do it until the petrol bulk and then fill it and then you got to solve it. That is nothing but the problem-solving strategy. Same way, if you have a headache, okay, so if you are just sitting idle, sometimes it may go out, but it may not go out. Then you got to go to the doctor and then you got to consult it and then you got to do that. Okay, so that is nothing but the validation step. So he will prescribe some medicine, then you got to. Almost same kind of things we are going to do in this lecture also. We'll see it. We'll develop some of the things. So simulation is the application of a model with the objective to derive the strategies. So you got to derive the strategies that is going to help to solve the problem or answer the question which is related to the system. Okay, which is related to the system which you are going to. That is nothing but the simulation. For example, as I mentioned, the model development, let us see. The system is nothing but the car. System analysis is nothing but identifying battery and fuel levels. Modeling, which is nothing but a model which is consisting of a battery and fuel. That is nothing but the modeling which I got. Simulation, I got to check battery and fuel level. Okay, so that I am just checking. Then I am going to apply this concept to the real car. That is nothing but the validation step. So if after you refill the battery or the tank, fuel tank, and you are starting the car, so if it is validated, then it is done. Otherwise, your problem is not solved, then again you got to derive new strategy and then you got to solve the problem. Okay, that is that. So how do we do that? Okay, this is a simple problem which I have told, but once you come to the reality, how do you do that? How do you do the system analysis? Okay, so you got to use the literature or you get benefit from others' experiences. So you might know already, like some people, you are not the alien of the planet, or you are not the only person who is going to face the problem, whatever you have it in the real life, already plenty of people might have faced the same problem. So you can get the experience from them, and then you can use the strategy which they have followed to solve the problem. Or you can use the literature. So literature means you can read some papers, okay, and articles or books that they might have already solved. Okay, so use that literature to analyze what are the components which we require, and then you can do that. Okay, that is one way. Sometimes it may not be possible. For example, the way which I got with the cancer treatment problem, etc., it may not be possible. Okay, so the problem will be completely new, and then we got to do that. So in that case, what you got to do is that you got to break down the problem, or you got to break down the system into small pieces, and then you got to analyze each of the things for which different discussions may be required. So a mathematician may be required, a business people may be required, a scientist may be required, a doctor may be required. All these things may be required. So you got to discuss with them, brainstorming sessions required. You got to meet them, you got to consult with them, all the various disciplines you got to do them. And there may be some new data may be coming. That also you got to understand the system, and you got to improve the model, and then you got to do the experimental program. Then what you got to do is that you got to modeling and simulation you got to do. So modeling and simulation means what you got to do is that you got to do appropriate software. So you got to develop some mathematical model, and then you got to use the appropriate software to solve the mathematical model. Then what you got to do is that you got to do some standard software or customized software if it is sometimes may require, that you got to do. Then what you got to do, you got to do the validation step. Okay, the validation is nothing but the comparison with existing experimental data. So that means already you might have developed, you might have solved the problem, but already experimental data may be there. Okay, something already the people might have solved, or some benchmark may be there, or some literature may be there, some experiment may be there. That you got to validate it. Okay, whether it is going to fit it qualitatively or quantitatively, etc. You got to do that. Okay, so that means what you got to do is that you got to do the quantitative validation and qualitative validation, both you got to do. Sometimes it may fail the validation. Okay, and in that case, you should not use that to solve the problem. Okay, that is the next topic. So let us see the conceptual model and physical model. So as you got drawn a house on the piece of paper, that is a conceptual model. You cannot live in that house. Okay, that's a house, but you cannot live in that house. Same way, if you draw a house on a piece of paper, which I got drawn in this one, that you cannot live in that. So it's a hard drawn on a paper. That is a conceptual model. There is no physical reality for that. Okay, all our life is a problem solving, which is going to have a conceptual model which you got to develop, and then you got to solve how to solve that problem, which is going to be there. So unless the conceptual model is built in your mind, you cannot solve the problem. Okay, you will not identify what is the important tool to solve our reality problem, etc. You cannot. Whereas in the physical model, you got to have a simplified version of the engine. Okay, and you got to have few parts of the engine which is connected to the fuel injection process, etc. And then you got to relate it to the real world, etc. So this optimization of the fuel consumption, which is again a business problem, you can treat it as, because you are trying to see like how the business model can be developed so that you can optimize the fuel consumption, etc. That is again a business model, you can see it. Now let us come to the mathematical model. How we are going to deal with the mathematical model. So far we have discussed about the modeling only. Now we will go to the mathematical. Now why mathematics? Why mathematics? Because it is a natural language for the model. Okay, it is a natural language model. Using mathematics, you can easily model it very easy. That is the reason. So what is mathematical modeling? Is very simple. It's an input and output parameter game. Okay, it is a question and answer game. It is a simply question and answer game. So what you got to do is that you got to develop a input and output parameters game. We are going to discuss that. So let us discuss that. You got to identify a list of input parameters involved in the system. So for example, you got told like we got to discuss some problem called car problem. So in that car problem, fuel tank you got mentioned as some parameter. Okay, so that means fuel is something. So whether it is empty or full, that is nothing but the parameter. So the fuel level, okay, that I can say it as an input parameter. So that is going to be the input for me, and that is going to drive the engine. So that is, but we already identified some list of input parameters and output parameter. Some people said like a headache, there is a stress. So what is the stress level? Okay, or what is the sugar level? What is the pressure level, etc., etc. We got to find. That is nothing but the input parameters for us to identify that I have the. That is nothing but the input parameter which is going to say that you are going to have the headache, etc. Okay, that is going to be there. Then you got to see like what is the output parameter. So list of output parameters. So according to the input parameter, how the stress is going to be increasing, why the car is not starting. All these things you can modulate as an output parameter. Now what the mathematical model is going to do is that you are going to do the input and output relation. You are going to find what is the relations between input and output, for which you are going to develop the technology. Okay, y equal to f of x. So it can be a single input, single output, or it can be multiple input and multiple output. It can be. Okay, so for which what you got to do is that you got to collect a numerical data. It is going to have a collection of data from experiments. It is going to be there. So you are going to have an input, output. Okay, that you got to describe in terms of mathematical terms. Okay, as I mentioned, it can be single input, single output. As we have mentioned, y equal to mx. This is a single input, single output. Or it can be like a Hart equation, which is going to have a multiple inputs, multiple outputs. That can be. So the next one is very, very important in the modeling part. Initially, all the system is black box. You don't know anything about that. A very apt example, which I can say it in the current scenario, is that you can think of the COVID situation. The COVID problem, you can see that it's a completely black box problem. At the 2020 or 2019, we don't know anything about the problem. Completely black box. We don't know anything about that. Then later, we identify that it is going to move from one place to another place. The people going to spread that. Okay, so that is the thing which we identify. Then completely uncertainty. Sometimes they said that you got to put this tablet. Sometimes they said that other tablet. And government itself was not clear what to be done. Sometimes they imposed a lockdown. Then sometimes they imposed complete nationwide lockdown. And sometimes they imposed local lockdown, etc., etc. They got. So they don't know like what to be done. So completely uncertainty. Because the problem is black box. They don't know anything to do. So it is completely uncertainty problem. Then they developed some investigation and then they got did some experimental, etc. Then they have posed some question and then they answered it. So that is the same thing we are trying to do in the modeling development. So it is a question and answer game which they are developing. So what is the mathematical model? It is going to have a triplet. One is called a system. Another is called a question related to that. Another is called the mathematical statements. Okay. A mathematical model is a triplet which is consisting of a system, a question related to the system, and a set of mathematical statements which can be answered. Okay. So now I'll just give 5 minutes time. I'll take some 5 minutes break. What you are going to do is that you just think of the problem, car problem. Okay, the car problem we have discussed. So already with Saranya or Kritika, they said that fuel is not there. Okay, fuel they got to check it. Now this one you got to. I have already told you what is the system. Okay. The question also it is already clear to you. Okay, what is the question is clear to you. But the car is not starting, so you got to check whether the fuel tank is full or not. Okay. Now, what is the mathematical statements which you can develop? You just take 5 minutes break. I'll come back, and then you tell me. Okay, then I'll just tell you whether you are going the correct approach, and then I will tell you my own way of interpretation. What is that? Okay. So I'll take 5 minutes break, and then tell me what you are going to give me as a mathematical statement. Okay.
Yes.
If you have any answers, you can tell. You don't need to list out many statements, just one statement also fine. How can we convert that into a mathematical model? Any thought? You don't need to hesitate, even if you are going wrong also it is fine, because as I mentioned, many of the problems are black box problem. It should be you should give wrong answers, okay, so that you can develop. At least if you give the answers, then you can think that you are in the developing stage, okay. If you don't answer anything, then you are just sitting idle, but nothing, not ready to learn anything, right? So you should say something so that I can understand what you are trying to develop. Yeah, any answers? Okay.
Sir, please unmute your microphone, sir. We couldn't hear.
Yeah, could you hear now?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, any answers from participants? Okay, fine. So I'll just go ahead. So what we have is that I have mentioned like fuel tank, okay? So I can just say that, let us say X denotes the level of the fuel in the tank. Then I can make it as either a binary problem, very simple problem, okay? Either I can make it as a binary problem or I can make it as a stochastic problem. So the binary problem is going to say, if I say X equal to 0, I can say it is empty. If I put X equal to 1, it is going to be full. This is a binary problem, 0 or 1. I can make it as a stochastic problem also. That means I can make it as a continuum problem. So I can put 0 less than or equal to X less than or equal to 1. So I can put, if it is 0, it is empty. If it is 1, it is completely full. If it is between 0 and 1, I can say that it is half empty, half full, like that I can make it. Okay, so that way I can put. Then we can just make it as, this is a normalized problem. If it is a not normalized problem, then what you got to put is that you got to put like what is the 0 is going to say like empty, and if I say like 45 liter is the capacity of my car, then I can say that fuel tank capacity is that, then I can put 45 as the range, and in between you can vary with that. Okay, so this is one thing. So this is a simple thing. Okay, so this is a simple statement. I made it out of it. I don't know whether I will infer anything or will not infer anything. That and all we don't know. I just converted it into a mathematical statement. That's all. Okay. Later stage, I may require some of the, I will ask some more questions, and then I will see like what is the things, etc. It's going to be the starting, etc. I can just relate. So this is going to be done. So my answer will be very simply answered. So whether the X is going to be 0 or the X is going to be 1. If X is 0, definitely the car is not going to start because the fuel is not, the car will start. Okay. If the X is 1 or if it is not equal to 0, then I have answered that question saying that fuel is not empty, it is there, fuel tank is there. That means I can go to the different problem saying that this is not the problem, therefore some other thing is going to be there. Okay, so that means I can just see what is the other thing is that. Then I can go to battery. Let us say Y is going to denote the level of the battery, then I can go there. That is also satisfied, then I can go to the next one. So like this, you can make plenty of statement and then you can proceed further. So therefore, there are plenty of variables are going to be there. So what is the decision? So some are going to be decision variable, some may be the input variable, some may be output variable, some may be state variable, some may be independent and dependent variable, some may be random variable. So the decision variable is going to say whether the decision maker can infer something from that, and then they can say whether it is going to give some decision for their management or business or whatever it is. Okay, so for that, whether it can be there. Similarly, there will be input variable, output variable, etc. It can be there. So what is the state variable is going to say? This is going to describe the state of the system. Okay, so the mathematical statement where it is going to say, like, let us say, like different quantities are going to be there. For example, in the car problem, I can say S1 is going to say like the state of the fuel. So that I can say like S1 is going to say like what is the level of the thing. So that I can say. Similarly, battery level I can say. Similarly, I can take the car pressure. Okay, the tire pressure I can take. Okay, or the level of the air in the tire, etc. I can take it. These are all I can state it as a state variable. I can describe that. So I can have a plenty of variable which I can deal with. Okay, for the car itself, I can have fuel tank, or I can take the tire pressure. I can take the heat inside the car. Or I can see the steering wheel position. Okay, or I can see like car position, etc., etc. Plenty of things I can take it, but that is not going to serve many of the things. Okay, what you are going to have is that you will have a plenty of variables you may have, but all the variables are not going to be playing the role for that. What you are going to have is that, so there may be a mathematical quantities which you are going to say, okay, the P1, P2, Pm, which is going to be the mathematical quantities. It can be numbers, it can be variable, it can be function, all this can be there, which is going to describe the properties of the system in terms of mathematical statement, which are related to the mathematical statement. Now, what you are going to do is that, suppose my car is not starting. Then in that case, why I have to care about the tire pressure? Because the tire pressure is there or not, irrespective of that, it is going to be there. I'm not going to care about that, whether the car is going to start there. So there is, I don't know, many of you might be Tamil people, I hope. Maybe you might have seen some of the Ajit movie and Karnaran joke, like, they so I will say it in Tamil. So the கண்ணாடியை திருப்பினா இப்படி வண்டி ஓடும் அப்படின்னு ஒரு ஜோக் சொல்லுவாங்க. ஓகே, ஸோ பக்கத்து அதாவது அந்த ஆட்டோவுக்கு வந்து சொல்லுவாங்க, கண்ணாடியை திருப்பினா இப்படி வண்டி ஓடும். ஓகே, அந்த கண்ணாடியை திருப்பினா கூட பரவாயில்ல, பக்கத்து ஆட்டோவோட கண்ணாடியை திருப்பினா இப்படி வண்டி ஓடும். ஸோ அதே மாதிரி தான். So the same thing here. Okay, so there are plenty of variables maybe that the car position, the mirror position, these are all some kind of variables you may have. But what is it going to impact on the real system? That is the same thing. Okay, so the same thing here. There may be plenty of variables may be there, but what is it going to impact on that? It is not going to impact on that. Then I don't need to worry about that. The car, the mirror position may be important for me. Some other things. Okay, so that may be important for me to observe whether the backside some car is coming or etc. It may be important. But is it necessary for me to start the car? No, right? So that is also a factor which is variable which I have. But that is not going to help me to solve this problem. So that means you truncate that or you just reduce that. Okay, that is not going to help me. Then why should I care about that? That you reduce that. So that means what you can do is that you can have a reduced system. Okay, you can have a reduced system. So you have a plenty of variables. You can collect as many variables as you want. But what is going to make some decision or what is going to affect the problem? That is the thing which you are going to consider, and you are going to reduce the system a little bit. So that is called reduced system. Okay, the reduced system, and correspondingly you have a system of parameters. Okay, that is that. So as I mentioned, connecting real world to mathematical, what we are going to do is that you have a problem, real world problem is that you have a system, you have a question. Okay, so from that question, what you are trying to do is that you are going to develop a mathematical model which is going to have SQM, and from that you are going to have a mathematical problem. Okay, that it may be a simple linear algebra problem, or it may be a partial differential, ordinary differential problem, or it can be a stochastic problem, probability problem. Many problems it can be there. Mathematical problem will be there. Then you got to understand what is the backbone of that mathematical problem, what is the mathematics tool which we can apply, whether it should be a matrix theory or it should be a calculus, etc., etc. You got to understand, and then you apply that and then try to solve that mathematical problem first. Once you solve the mathematical problem, you try to see whether it is going to answer that question which you have it in the mathematical problem. Okay, so you develop the mathematical problem, you try to solve it whether it is going to be there. If that is going to solve the problem, you apply that to your mathematical, the real problem. Okay, the real question which you have answered, try to answer that question. So if your answer A star is going to answer the A, your job is done. If it is not done, then either your system has some problem or your question has some problem. You remodify your system or you remodify your question, and then try to simulate try to develop a new mathematical model try to develop a new modified mathematical problem and then try to answer. Okay, that is the cycle it should go. So it should be a iterative process. It should keep on going. So there are different types of mathematical models are there, like the phenomenological is there and the mechanicist is there. So let us classify them into based on the system, question, and mathematical statement. So in the system level, you can have either it's a physical model or you can have a conceptual model. Similarly, you can have a natural problem or technical problem. Natural problem means suppose I want to see something observed in the nature, like I want to see like observe the natural phenomena like the cyclone or weather, etc. And then I got to see like whether I can predict the weather temperature and then alert the people, etc. That is a natural problem. Similarly, if you want to have a technical problem, for example, I have a car problem or computer problem, etc., that is a kind of a technical system you have, and that also you can try to solve it. Similarly, you have a stochastic problem or deterministic problem. For example, you can say that the stochastic problem, you can have it something like the weather prediction itself, you can say it as a stochastic problem because they will say it is going to rain, but it may not rain. Okay, that is kind of a stochastic because they will say like 60%, 40% the probability is there, etc., etc. Deterministic means if I say that, it is going to say. Okay, if I say like this much force I'm going to apply, then it is going to hit it at that place exactly. Okay, so if I just go very fast and then hit it in the opposite wall, then you are going to collapse it, etc. So that is a deterministic problem. Okay, if I just send this one, if I just accelerate the vehicle at this speed, then it is going to definitely hit the 60 km speed or 80 km speed, etc. That is going to be, that is a deterministic problem. Similarly, there may be a continuous problem or discrete problem. So you can say like the time dependent problem, it can be a continuous problem, or you can have some kind of discrete problems. You just collect some data randomly, etc. And based on the dimension you can have, okay, different dimension you can have, and depends on the fields of application. Either it's a business problem or it's a cancer problem or it's a natural problem, etc. Depending on the. Similarly, based on the question, you can have a phenomenological question or you can have a mechanistic question. You can have stationary problem or unstationary problem. Depending on that, you can have a question. Okay, it's a lumped system or distributed system. Based on that, you can ask. It's a direct question or inverse question. Sometimes you will ask the direct question. Sometimes you will ask the inverse question, etc. Then you may ask the research-based question or management-based question, etc. We'll see some of the management-based questions, etc. Then there will be a speculation or design or scale of the question, etc. And mathematical statement, you can have a linear problem or you can have a non-linear problem, or you can have an analytical problem or numerical problem, or you can have autonomous or non-autonomous, continuous problem or discrete problem can be there. It can be differential equations or it can be differential equations or integral equations or algebraic equations, depending on that. So the mathematical concepts, whenever you develop, as I mentioned, you take the COVID-19 case problem. When 2019, it was completely black box. So same way, whatever problem you enjoy, whatever the technology you enjoy, everything was a black box problem. If you just imagine from the science history onwards, you can see that initially they thought that the Earth is flat because they don't know anything about the solar system, anything. So they thought that the Earth is flat. And later they thought that the Earth is revolving around, the Earth is fixed and Sun is revolving, etc. So there was a geocentric theory, heliocentric theory, etc. was coming. So that means they don't know completely about that thing. Then there was a black box problem. They don't know. Then later they just try to develop one by one. They just assume something and then they just see that now we are able to send even the rockets to moons and Mars, etc. Because we evolved a lot of things from that problem. Okay, so initially it was a black box problem. Now we evolved a lot. Okay. So if you take any of the social system, okay, our social system is still, it is a black box problem because we don't know when there will be a riots or when there will be a religious riots or religious fights or caste fights, etc. will come. It is completely unstable. Okay, so the social system, you can see that when the small things, it will just agitate the people to make a problem. So that is completely black box problem. So the many of the social systems problems are black box problem. We are trying to move from the black box problem to gray box problem. Still, we cannot say it is a white box problem. So it is trying to move to the gray box problem a little bit. Similarly, the chemical system and biological system, our body itself, we can take it as a gray box problem. So some people will have allergic to some of the wheat, some people will be having allergic to milk, etc., etc. And some people will get food poison. Some people the same food, they will not get the food poison, etc. Because it's a biological system. So we understand some of the things. So we know like the allergic food, etc. So this is kind of a gray box problem which we know. Mechanical system, almost the one which you are sending the rockets to the moon or flying in the flyover, means like going at a higher speed at the flyover, etc., etc. These are all kind of mechanical system which we do. Okay. So the next one is another important thing. So you have to develop some model. Don't believe that the model is reality. Okay, this is not the thing. So this is the reason I am keeping it in the warning symbol. Okay, red color and yellow color text I got. So because it is a warning for you. Don't extrapolate the region of fit. Okay, don't extrapolate the region of fit that you can imagine. Means the headache which you have may solve if you are putting some paracetamol, but the other person it may not be possible. He may need to put some specs or something. Okay, so that may be required. So don't extrapolate the region of fit. Okay, don't distort the reality to the model. So that's what usually happen in some of the society. What they will do is that so they will. Some people may not fit into the society. They will just distort that. So they will try to distort the reality so that they can do that. Okay, so that's the way that the corner killing or those things used to happen, etc. Okay, or the killing due to the rears, etc. And don't retain a discredited model. Suppose your model is discredited, so you got to submit that model to some of the scientific community or management committee, etc. And that has to be credited. If it is not, if it is a discredited model, don't retain it. Like the way nowadays we don't believe the flat earth theory, or nowadays we don't believe that Earth is Earth is fixed and the sun is rotating, etc. These are all discredited models. So we are just ignoring that. Okay, so that is the model always like getting discredited. Okay, so same thing, COVID-19 also, some of the things they got proposed and then that was discredited. So they don't keep that models, etc. And last thing, don't fall in love with your model. So if you fall in love with your model, definitely you will be doing the fighting with the people, and then you will just say that mine is better, your party is better, my religion is better, my caste is better. Like this, people used to do that. Okay, so don't fall in love with your model. So same thing for this model also. Now next one. So this is the general idea for the mathematical model. So I'm just giving specific concept from some of the textbook. So the process of mathematical modeling from this book, mathematical modeling, a first course in mathematical modeling, you can refer this book. So from this book, what he is saying is that 6-step process he is saying. So first identify the problem to be solved, make assumptions, solve the model, verify the model, then implement the model and maintain the model. This is the steps which is prescribed by Giordano. Okay. Then Meyer, which is one of the, this book is actually textbook in IIT Madras for mathematical modeling course. So concept of mathematical modeling. Okay, so here they simple 3 steps. So formulate the question, then mathematical manipulation, do that, and then evaluate. Okay, this is the steps which Meyer is recommending. And Mark Mirza, he is saying 5-step process. First ask the question, then select the modeling approach, then formulate the model, solve the model, then answer the question. Okay, this is the steps which he is saying. Then Fox is saying 8-step process, but apart from that, he will say one more step, so that we will see more details in the next one. What is the process involved? So what he is suggesting is that you understand the problem or the question first, then make simplifying assumptions, and then define all variables, then construct the model, solve and interpret the model, then verify the model, then see what is the strength and weakness of your model, okay, and then implement the model. Almost if you see all these 4 textbooks, books which I have told, whatever I have mentioned earlier, the same thing they are repeating again and again. So you have a problem, and then you have some assumptions, and then you define some variables, and then you construct the model, etc., etc. There, okay, almost every text is doing the same kind of thing. So this is the thing which is given in this book, because I'm just going to more details about this book, Mathematical Modeling for Business Analytics. So that book I'm just going to give more details, and then we'll explain some of the problems and some of the complicated problem also. I'll post it, okay, which you can read it in some of the research papers, etc. So what he is saying is that define the real world problem or decision to be made. Okay, what is the real world problem and what is the decision to be made? That is the problem we go to see. Then next step, you make assumptions and develop a mathematical model. Okay, so you got to make assumption and develop a mathematical model. Then based on that mathematical model and assumption, you collect all the required data. Okay, do the data collection, okay, acquire and collect all the data. Then try to solve the model. Okay, you got the data and you got the model. Now try to solve that model. Okay, so once you solve the model, what you can do is that you can analyze the results. Either you can test the model. If the test is failed, so this is the test model that is called common sense test. So if you test the model, if the common sense test is failing, then you go to make assumptions to the model. For example, as I mentioned, that mirror rotating the mirror will not start the vehicle, right? So that is nothing but similar kind of thing. So that is not a common sense, okay? So that common sense test, you got to check it. Because if it is not there, then you just change the model and just do it. Because that is also a model. You change that, rotate the mirror, then if the car is starting, that is kind of model some people may propose, but that is not common sense. The common sense is not there. So that means you test the model, and if it is not there, change the model or make further assumptions and develop the new method. So solve that model and again analyze the results. Okay, if the common test is failed, again change the mathematical model. Instead, after you solve the model, suppose you analyze the results and perform some sensitivity analysis on the model. Okay, we will discuss about how to do the sensitivity analysis in detail. Then what you got to do is that again this sensitivity is failing. Okay, the common sensitivity analysis is failing. Again, you got to make your assumptions, or you got to develop the model further. That you got to do. So if that is passing the sensitivity analysis also, then you go to verify and validate verify the model and validate the model and implement the results, etc. You can do it in the real world. Okay. So till then you got to live in your illusion world only. Okay. Real world is you have a problem and you have a validation. Only these two are in the real world. Remaining all in the illusion world. Okay. You are going to have it in the conceptual mind, or you have it in the piece of paper, or in the computer. It is going to be there. That is the only thing it is going to be there. Okay. So let us see the 9 steps to construct the model. Okay, steps in model construction, 9 steps. Let us see. So this is again from this textbook. So 9 steps. So again, the 1 step extra is giving is as follows. So again, it's the same thing. Understand the question or the question to be asked. Make simplifying assumptions. Define all variables. Construct the model. Solve and interpret the model. So then test the model. So is it passing the common sense test? To the results pass the common sense test, that you got to check it. So if it is not that, then you got to repeat the process again. Verify the model, validate the model if possible. Identify the strengths and strictness so that you can see like what is the strength and weakness of your problem. Then you got to do the sensitivity analysis and model testing. Implement and maintain the model for future use if it passes the common sense test. So what is the detailed step? So understand the decision to be made or the question to be asked. Okay, let us see that. So the same as identifying the problem. Okay, the understand the problem is difference is something, but the same as identifying. But it is very difficult. Okay, it is little difficult because in real life, no one provides an equation to be solved. Okay, in the school days or in the college days, people, mathematics professor or some people will go ask the question and ask you to solve the question. But in real life, it is not going to be there. In real life, no one provides you an equation to be solved. Okay. They will ask the question, we need to make a money, or we need to improve your efficiency, etc., etc. They will say that. Okay. So then what you got to do is that you got to develop that, etc. So the precise formulation of the mathematics to actually describe the situation that we need to solve, that you got to do. For example, in the Suguna Arts and Science College, you got to prepare a timetable. So the management said that you got to prepare a timetable for exams. Then there is no equation. But you can convert that into some kind of equation and then you can solve it. You can using some craft theoretical approach or tree approach, etc. You can solve it. Okay. So for that, the question is that how can we schedule the exam efficiently? That is question number 1. How can we make seating arrangements so that the students do not copy during exam? So I got to mix 2 kinds of students so that nearby students are not same people, etc., etc. So these are the things you got to keep it in mind, and you got to ask some questions and then you got to do it. So these are the questions which you got to try to answer them. Then you got to do the max simplifying assumption. So you want to make some timetable, etc. Then you got to do the brainstorming session. So when we got to conduct, how we are going to conduct, how many rooms are there, how many factors are there, etc., etc. So you got to make a list of factors and variables. Okay. So, but remember that or realize that it is not possible to capture all factors influencing the problem. Many problems may be influencing, but you cannot do that. For example, you are preparing some timetable. Suddenly there is a protest nearby in your city, and everything is blocked. Okay, or some protest and some bandh is there, and the college is shut down. So that and all you cannot sometimes cannot capture them. So these are all some of the factors which you need to incorporate. It may not be captured immediately. Suddenly it may come. So it is not possible to capture all factors influencing the problem, but you can capture as much as possible. It is possible. So the task is simplified by reducing the number of factors. So you don't need to consider all the factors. So you don't know, like 1 month before you may be scheduling the exam. So you may not know that whether there is some cyclone is coming or storm is coming, so that you got to give leaves, etc. That may not be considered at that time of decision. So the task is simplified, but you got to consider the important factors. All factors you cannot consider when you get to it. So you got to make simplifying assumptions about the factors. So certain factors can be constant. For example, you can see like number of classrooms in your college may be constant, okay, or number of invigilators may be constant, etc. You can consider. So certain factors you can ignore it, okay. And then you got to find relations between remaining factors or variables. So what are the relations between them that you got to find? So assume that the relationship to reduce the complexity of problem. So this is going to be assumed so that the simple relationship will be reduced. So after identifying the list of variables, so you got to identify the list of variables. After identifying, you got to see what are all the independent variables, what are all the dependent variables you got to see. For example, timetable exam. So number of classroom is going to be a dependent variable. Number of invigilators per room is going to be a dependent variable. So exam paper, it is not going to be an independent variable because number of classroom is a dependent variable because based on that you are going to prepare the timetable. Number of invigilators per room, it is going to be again a dependent variable because how many rooms are there, according to that you got to say like how many faculty members or how many TAs, etc. you got to assign, etc. you got to see that. So the independent variable, for example, additional seats requirement, exam paper, these are all independent of all this exam schedule, okay, because we are trying to prepare the timetable. For that, these are all going to be independent variable. Okay, this is going to be other factor for conducting smooth exam. It may be required, but these are all independent variable, which is not required for that. Then you have a classroom size. These are all. What is the, suppose I have like 1,360 square feet classroom is there, then these are all independent of that. Then you got to define all variables. What are the critical variables that you got to define? Then you got to provide a mathematical notations for each of the thing. Okay. Then you got to include units of the variable. What is the units of the variable that you got to say? And include all variables, although they may not be useful sometimes, but we'll just during the refinement stage we can just remove them. Class size may not play a role, but seating capacity is useful. So classroom size is not required, but how many seats are there? 60 seater or 70 seater, that may be required. The next one we are going to talk about construct a model. Okay, how do we do that? Say that you can use existing tools, or you can use the mathematical tool, like use your own creativity to build a model, or you can it can help to answer important questions. So those things you can do. So the first principle is that you got to assumption, you got to make assumptions, and then you got to create a variable list, and then you got to construct a usable mathematical model based on this assumption and variable list. Then the second principle, you got to take a data sets and then perform the analysis and examine useful patterns. So what are the patterns which you have? Okay, how to put that. So for example, I want to see like how to organize the things. Some courses may be common. So in that case, the common courses you got to put it in the same time, etc. That you got to see. Okay. Then useful model from such as regression model in business analytics. We will see some of the regression model that will be required. Then third principle is you take a research. Okay, take a model off the self. So you may have developed some model, but that has to be applied to the reality. That means it is not a self model. Okay, it should be taken out of the self and then you got to apply it. So it should not sleep somewhere. Okay, so it should take out and then you got to apply it and then see whether it is going to be applied or not. So if it's not applicable, either use it directly or appropriately and then modify it so that you can use it. Then solve and interpret the model. So now take the model constructed from steps 1 to 4. So solve it using mathematical tools. So you have constructed the problem. So far you constructed the problem only. The model means you constructed the problem completely. Now for that model, you got to solve it using mathematical tools. Okay, it may be too complex or it may be too wide also. So you try to solve some simple problem, but it may go a wider problem also. So it may not solve or interpret it. It is not necessary that it may solve it. So in that case, you go to the steps 2 to 4 and simplify the model further and then try to solve it. Okay? And enhance the model, and you ensure that the model yields a good results, usable result. That is called the passing common test. Then you verify the model. Before using the model, you got to test it out. Okay? You ask several questions like, does it directly answer the question? Does it allow for the answer to the questions to be answered? So you have an answer to the question to be answered, that whether it is allowing. Is it usable in practical use? You ask the question. Can we obtain a data to use the model? Okay, so suppose you build some model, but there is no data. Okay, you got some model, but there is no data. Then how do you collect that? So I want to do some experiments on the Saturn or let's say Jupiter, but I'm not sending anything. Then how do you model it? Okay, so you develop some model, but how do you validate it? So you obtain the model to use the model, obtain data to use the model. That you got to do. Then you got to do it. Does it pass the common test, etc. So strength and weakness you got to analyze. So no model is complete without self-reflection. Okay, so you got to see like whether it is good or bad. All this strength and weakness you got to analyze so that it will get completion. And then you consider not only what we did right. So sometimes you develop the model, so that may be right. So not only don't analyze what only you did right. Sometimes you might have done something wrong also. So what is the expected thing? What can go wrong? All these things you can check it out. What can you do better also? So once you understand the weakness of the model, then you can understand what can be done much better also. You can do that. So this will help to refine the model. Then this is another important thing: sensitivity analysis and model testing. So how sensitive model is to changes in the value of the parameters model. For example, you have the car problem, or you have the classroom timetable problem. So you have model like 58, so the seating capacity is 30, but there are 1 or 2 students less or more is there. Then in that case, what you got to do is that you got to make sure that there are some additional table or chairs are available, so that he is doing that. Or sometimes some people are copying. Okay, just accept that some invigilator copied that. Then you got to swap them in the proper place. So those are also kind of a sensitivity analysis. Same way, if you go for the car problem, so you just modify some of the fuel tank, etc. And then you see like whether the parameter is going to be modified or not, etc. That is the sensitivity analysis. This is very, very important. There's a stochastic problem, we'll see it. So how sensitive to the structure of the model. So suppose you change the structure of the problem, whether it will collapse. Okay, that is very, very sensitive, because the social systems you see is very sensitive. People are very sensitive. So if you just make some small statement, for example, the Hindi imposition agitation, or the you say that religious agitation, etc. So all these things are kind of a structural model we have. That structural model is very sensitive. So if you just some big personality is making some small statement, then the people will react like anything. So that is kind of a sensitivity is there. Okay, the sensitive model is there. So that is there. Then the parameter sensitivity. So it is usefully performed for us as a series of tests. Okay. So the same thing. So I'll repeat the second point once again in terms of mathematics. Okay. So for example, you have a system of equation, okay, linear algebra equation you have. So that system of equation is very, very important. For example, in some cases, what will happen is that you just let's say a 3 by 3 matrix. Okay, you just calculate the determinant of the matrix, or calculate whether it is a non-singular or singular matrix. You just make small changes. Sometimes it may become like a zero matrix. Okay, so that means you can see that how sensitivity is done. So some parameter may change that coefficient of the matrix, then automatically it becomes like 0. Then that is sensitive, right? So small changes you made, that is going to become like a big problem. So for the parameter sensitivity, so you collect a list of parameters that you got to check whether it's a series of tests, whether it is passing or not, etc. You would see it. So you got to set a parameter range. Okay, you got to see like whether it is going to be useful or not, and this will help you to get the confidence in your model. Okay, whether some uncertainty is going to be there. Okay, so it is not necessary that, for example, if we are sending the rocket, it is not necessary that always it should go in the right track. So sometimes small changes it will make a big disaster. For example, the recent Mangalyaan, I think the one which they sent to Chandrayaan, I think, yeah, Chandrayaan which they sent, that was a collapse one. So because small sensitivity, it made the collapse for that. So similarly, there are plenty of examples of that. So what will happen is that a small uncertainty will be there. That uncertainty will propagate. It will propagate, and then it will just go away like anything. You can take a simple example of the debt. Okay, suppose you are thinking that the debt can be solved in a few months, but sometimes you may see that the interest will grow like anything, and then you may not be able to resolve the debt. That is a kind of business problem. You can see that. That is a kind of sensitivity. So you bought some money and you are not able to repay that because that small amount you thought, but that interest rate is increasing like that. So it is going to make some problem for you. So that is kind of a sensitivity study. You have to see it. So many parameters in system that represent that quantities are difficult. It's very difficult to judge them. For example, we saw some problem, but it is very difficult to quantify them. And sometimes it is impossible to measure the great deal of accuracy. How accuracy to the real one, that is difficult to measure it. Sometimes the parameter value changes in the real world. Okay, so today the interest rate may be different, tomorrow the interest rate may be different.